to day 8 of the CRaFTi Advent series. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's video, which had annotations on it rather than a voiceover. For today's video, I was using some of the Christina Collection from Christina Griffiths and CraftStash, along with some Spellbinders dies as well. So, this is a technique that I did ages ago, way before I started filming videos, when I just like sit and craft for myself in the holidays from uni and stuff. And this was a technique where you stamp with acrylic paint and then used distress stains, or you could just use watercolours over the top. So I'm actually using a piece of watercolour card here, and I'm just picking out like 3 different stamps, I think, and then I've got some silver metallic acrylic paint and a little piece of cut and dry foam, and I'm just going to, I'm getting a baby wipe ready to put my stamps on to keep them wet so that the paint doesn't dry out when I finish with them. So I've just scooped up some of the paint into the cut and dry foam and basically made like a paint ink pad, and then I'm just pouncing that onto the stamp and stamping it randomly all over the piece of card. Then I'm moving on to the next image. You want to do this, you don't want to add too much paint to your stamp, but you want to add just enough, so you might want to practice on a piece of scrap paper first. But I quite like the look of some where you've added a bit too much in some places and not enough in other places, because it gives a sort of variation to the stamped image, and it kind of gives it a bit more of a rusticy look as well, I suppose. So I've used a butterfly, then I've used that lovely vine image, which is one of my favourites, and then this gorgeous little cluster of 3 leaves as well. And once I'd done that, I thought it looked a little bit empty. So I got an embossing ball tool. This is just a really old one, but you can get ones from Tonic as well in different sizes. And I'm just dipping that into the leftover paint and dabbing it on just to give some interest to the background, so it's not just going to be solid colour once we've added the colour later. You can just leave this to air dry. I used to always leave them to air dry because I do about 5 or 6 in one go. But because I was filming a video, I wanted to get it done, so I'm just using my heat gun to speed up a bit. It's mainly just those dots that we're trying to dry, because the layer of paint was so thin for the stamped images, it doesn't really take very long to dry, but the dots took a little bit longer to dry because you're sort of dotting on a puddle of the paint. So now I'm just wetting the card first, and then I'm going to go in and pounce on my distress stains. That was broken china or peacock feathers. This one is peeled paint, but it's kind of gone really bright over time and it looks more like mowed lawn. Then I'm adding a bit more water to keep it wet. Then I'm adding walnut stain, and then I think I add vintage photo and a bit of wild honey as well, just to warm it up. Again, you can just use any watercolours you've got. The Nuvo Aquafly pens would be really great. I mean, I've still got all my distress stains, so I need to think of ways of using them up. I don't know if you can buy them anymore, actually. They were really popular for ages, and then they just sort of went out of fashion. Anyway, because I used silver metallic paint, I decided to just slightly tap in some Silver Dream Pixie powder, just to give some little extra areas of metallic, and it'll sort of burst out into the distress stain colour as well and give some cool effects. And then I'm dabbing a little bit of the extra paint off to it kind of merges the colours a little bit more too, but it also means you're not going to get that, like, I think they call it a backwash, where all the ink puddles up at the edge and then it like sucks its way back into the card, and then you get these weird bloom edges and stuff. So I was trying to avoid that, and then I'm just finishing it off, drying it with my heat tool. And the piece of card that I'm using, I made sure that it would fit 2 of the die that I'm going to use to cut out the background piece, which is the A2 Matting Basics. I think it's set B, the largest one in that is the one that I use at the end. And so now I'm taking one of Christina's layered butterfly stamps, and I want to stamp it 4 times. I ended up doing it 5 times because I messed one up, but I'm going to do it 4 times, and I'm going to add the antennae just to 2 of them, because I want to layer the butterflies. So I'm going to cut one out for each butterfly. I'm going to cut one out that has the antennae on and has more of a gap around the butterfly, and then for the other one I'm going to cut right up to the black line of the butterfly, and then I'm going to sort of tweak the wings and layer them up together to give some 3D effects. So for colouring these butterflies, I'm going to do the exact same thing as I was doing for the background, wetting the paper first and pouncing on the same colours. I was using archival ink to stamp these butterflies. That was the only waterproof ink I had at the time, but the Black Shadow Nuvo Hybrid ink would work just as well, or even the VersaFine Onyx Black pigment ink, as long as you let it dry, that would work brilliantly too. And I'm just sprinkling on a tiny bit of the Silver Dream Pixie Powder again, just so it brings everything together. Then I'm going to dry them, obviously, because I'm doing it for a video. I want them to be dry so I can cut them out and everything. But you can equally just leave these to air dry. And say you really like this design of card, you could do, 10 of them at a time, and then you're, leaving them to dry overnight and then coming back and doing the next step or whatever. You can sort of do them production line style. So to make sure I get enough space to cut both of these backgrounds out, I'm just cutting that piece in half, which is to 10.5 centimetres, and then that die will fit perfectly. I'm going to then use, these two dies are Spellbinders ones. They are by Seth Apter. That circular one I think is called Outlaw, and the square one is called Periscope. And I'm using some Lunar Silver Craft Perfect card, which is one of my favourite cards. I love the Craft Perfect pearlescent card, it is gorgeous. And it's pearlescent on both sides too, which is brilliant. So I'm cutting them out, I'm using my Platinum 6 machine. These days they have the Jane Davenport Deep Sea die cutting machine too, which is basically identical to the Platinum 6, and there will be a unboxing video on this channel some point soon too, because I've got that one now. But they're both exactly the same machine, so if you're looking to invest in one, you could get either of them. And that's that A2 Matting Basics die I was just using there to cut that background out, which just gives like a plain straight edge as if you'd used a paper trimmer, but it gives that sort of bevel where the excess metal of the die is, which I really like. So now I'm cutting out the butterflies. Oh, they're still not quite dry enough yet. Got to dry them a bit more. You want to make sure the card is nice and dry before you start trying to cut intricate things out, because you've probably noticed if you've done it before, the card starts to tear if it's a bit wet or a bit damp. So if you make sure it's really nice and dry, then you're going to be able to cut them out much nicer. And I'm using the little Tonic Mini Snips by Tim Holtz. They've now got a black handle, but this was filmed more than a year ago. And I'm doing what I just said about cutting one with a little border, and then I'm cutting one right up to the black edge. And I'm going to layer them on top of each other. I used to do this a lot. This was one of my favourite kinds of cards to do. I had a different butterfly stamp back then. This was sort of from now, it was probably 5 years ago. And I used to do these really cool, crazy ink spray backgrounds that were really bright colours, and then I used to do all this over stamping and splatting and all sorts, and then I'd add a butterfly and a sentiment, and that would be the card. I used to love doing those cards so much. I shall have to do a video on one of them at some point. This is me trying to staple the two together and failing. I put 2 on it and then thought I did like it, and then went, no, I don't like it. So I'm just using my scissors to pick the staples back out again. And then staple that right down the centre of the body this time. That looks much better. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. For these CRaFTi Advent videos, I'm really rubbish at editing videos, so I don't like chopping lots of bits of footage out, because Movie Maker gets its knickers in a twist and then corrupts all your files and then you lose everything. So I'm just, instead of speeding it up to 5 or 6 times the speed, I'm doing it 3 or 4 times the speed, and then obviously I'm just yapping over the top of it. I'm hoping it's interesting what I'm saying, but yeah. So I'm hoping this is fine for people. I don't think it's too fast. I mean, I don't think my other videos are too fast, but anyway. Because, I mean, my original style of video is sped up because it's the process behind the card. They're not meant to be tutorials, although everybody seems to think they are. They're not. they were supposed to just be the process behind the card, so you could see like my thought process behind it and stuff. But I suppose with this CRaFTi Advent series, I'm turning the 25 videos I've picked more into tutorials, which will be great for those of you who've been watching my videos from the beginning and saw them the first time round, and then you get to watch them again. Maybe you've forgotten and get to hear me ramble on about a load of rubbish. Anyway, so that instrument I was just using is a Dymo label maker, which is got like label tape and then it embosses the letters into it. That's actually belonged to my dad, and it could have even been Granddad's. But anyway, it's really, really old. It's older than me, and I still keep using it. But yeah, so you just punch the letters into that, and then I'm just sticking it onto cards, so it's got a silver border around the edge. They don't sell that label maker anymore. I've had loads of questions about it in the past because I use it quite a lot. They do sell, Dymo do still sell the embossing ones, but it's called like a junior one, and it embosses the letters further apart, and I don't like it as much. But I have noticed there's a brand called Motex, M-O-T-E-X, that has one that looks really similar to that one I was just using. So if you're interested, you could look at that. I haven't tried one, I've never seen one, so other than a picture on the internet, but it looks similar, so if you really did want one, that might be a good option. And the embossing label tape you can actually buy on eBay quite readily, actually. It's the 9mm width of it, and you can get it in loads of different colours now. That green one is a really old one, but I say recently, and it was like a year or two ago now, I bought clear and silver and pink and purple and green and all sorts, so yeah. So that's the finished background. You could see then the light shining off the acrylic paint, and then we've got the distress stains over the top to give that cool mottled background where they've sort of merged into each other where they were still wet. It kind of looks like a woodlandy galaxy, really, doesn't it? Because it's like browns and greens and blues rather than blacks and purples and pinks and stuff for a galaxy. Anyway, so now I'm just using some foam pads to raise up the Outlaw die cut, and I'll do the same for the Periscope one in a minute. I just think sometimes adding that little bit of dimension to one element is quite nice. And then I'm going to add the butterfly over the top. It's really funny that all of these videos I've been picking for the CRaFTi Advent are actually ones that I have on my shelf still. Like, I didn't want to part with some of these, so they're actually cards that are still on my shelf in my craft room next to me. You know when you like make a card and you don't want to part with it, or you've made a card and you think, oh, that was really great, I really want to recreate that more, so I'm going to keep that one to inspire me to make more of it. They've all just been sitting there, and then I don't actually ever get a chance to make any more like it. But anyway, maybe in the future, when I run out of ideas, I've got all of them sitting on my shelf to remind me. Or I can just watch my videos back. That's quite good too. The surface I'm working on in the background is the Tonic A3 glass cutting mat. I think they do still sell this one. But they've obviously now brought out the new Tim Holtz Media Matte, which is like the 2/3 black, 1/3 white matte. But they're exactly the same. They've just got a different thing stuck to the back of them with the measurements and everything on. And obviously they're a different colour. I used to get a lot of questions about the matte in the background, that's why I thought I'd mention it. I'm pretty sure you can still buy it. Oh yeah, and then here I am adding on my Nouveau Crystal drops, which are the glitter ones, and they're, what's it called? Silver Moonlight, I think it is. Silver Moonlight, the glitter ones. These are just ones I've pre-made earlier and I keep in my little pots. But in a second I will show you how I make them anyway as well. I just like pre-making them because, especially if you're putting a die cut on a card, you could have one hanging over the edge of a die cut. You couldn't do that if you dropped it straight onto the card because it would fall off the edge of the die cut and onto the bottom piece of the card. So that's why I like to pre-make them. This is how I do it. That is a piece of backing paper from some double-sided adhesive sheet, and then all I'm doing is squidging out different size drops, the kind of sizes that I know I like to use, and then I'll leave that to dry for like 24 hours or 48 hours, and then I'll put them all in a pot. So I've got them all there to use. I forgot I used to do that on my videos. I used to be very organised with using my Nuvo drops, and I used to use some and then make some more at the end of the video. I should do that again. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again tomorrow. So bye!